Hi everyone. I'm just waiting for my. Oh, you're here. You're right about the Zoom.
I literally, get a little bit further back.
All right. Welcome, Ravni. Welcome to my IG page and our video about
Hi,
perinatal
Bhavika.
mental health.
I've got to not look at the
Welcome,
comments. I get really
Ravni.
distracted.
What are you getting distracted by?
When I see people, I'm like, hi, Bhavika. Hey, Jaskita. Hi, everybody.
Hi everyone. Welcome to our live today. My name, as you know, is Aman. I'm a senior cognitive behavioral therapist. I work in my local perinatal mental health service, and today I have invited my beautiful friend Ravneet from Neat Nutrition to talk to us about perinatal mental health. Today's theme for the perinatal mental health partnership. They are talking about journeys to recovery, and this is something that means so much to me. I can talk all the statistics about how perinatal mental health affects you, but seeing people come to the other side, that is something special. And this is what Ravneet is here to talk to us about today. So Ravneet, introduce yourself and tell us about you.
Hi. Thank you for everyone coming up on the IGTV with us today. I'm Ravneet. I'm Neat Nutrition. I am a mum of two boys, 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. I had postnatal twice for each, but I was
Postnatal, so
only
I'm going to pause you there. Postnatal, you
yeah,
said postnatal.
postnatal
Everyone here has
depression. Yeah.
postnatal depression. Okay.
I had postnatal depression twice. In hindsight, I recognized in my first pregnancy that I'd had it after the birth as well as during. And then in the second pregnancy, I think it was the perinatal depression, a term that I wasn't even familiar with until I'd spoken to my manager at the job. And again, that was my only formal diagnosis of postnatal depression. The first time wasn't, which I think is really common with a lot of women that I speak to in DMs. So I talk about mental health a lot on my page because I think it's so intertwined with the way that we project on our body image, becoming a mother, maternally, that new identity, the physical change, the complete overhaul of your life.
Mhm.
So yeah, like sometimes I have to talk about it on my page, like why I talk about mental health with regards to weight loss, body image, art image. They're so profoundly intertwined. So when I saw your post this week, I was like, oh my God, I need to be more on this because this is huge. So I was really grateful that you invited me here.
And I think that's what drew me to your page as well. So not only are you talking about body neutrality, not even positivity, it's about when you go into the postnatal period, for the perinatal period, there's so many changes that happen to a woman's body. Um,
I was like, who's that?
Sorry about that. Remind me to
Body
call you back.
changes.
Yeah, so the body changing, the body's changes so much during the perinatal experience, right? We get bigger, and then we lose. Then we want to lose the baby weight as quickly because Instagram, social media, the way that the media body shames women who don't
All
bounce
the
back
time.
all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
anyone
got
who
goosebumps when you said it because I was like, oh, it gets me in my core.
But I think what also drew me to your page is your transparency and your authenticity in talking about your postnatal mental health difficulties and how difficult you found it. And I think maybe we haven't spoken about it a huge amount, but the fact that you experienced it with both children, and it makes sense that you would have had perinatal or prenatal depression because
Yeah.
you're attuned to the signs of it in your second pregnancy. So how old are your children now?
I've got an 8-year-old boy and a 5-year-old boy.
So they're a little bit older now, not like mine.
So stressful.
I saw that you went to the school run today, and that was an enjoyable experience for you. So, tell me a little bit about what I guess I go medical model, but what symptoms? What do you associate? What did you feel as part of your depression in this
I think
period?
I think this is hugely, hugely important because I talked about it in hindsight. So I talked about it in the journey to recovery, because at the time when you're in it, we called it the darkness. Me and my sister used to refer to this as the dark times, the dark cloud. I didn't want to leave my house, and I'm already quite an introvert. Even though I'm on Instagram, there might be other women watching who could relate. You can be on Instagram, you can engage, but who here's like quite an introvert that needs to then recover their energy? So for me, being at home and being a little bit of a hermit wasn't such a huge sign, but I'd moved into my own home for the second baby where I was formally diagnosed, and having a second child just threw me. I made all these commitments to myself that I wasn't going to rush to lose the weight, wasn't going to conform to the typically Indian community of do da 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 da. I was going to take my time. So interestingly, Aman, my postnatal was diagnosed, I think, at 8-9 months after baby.
Is that first baby or second baby?
Second baby. And it was November 20, when was my baby born? 2016. And I went to see my manager to extend my maternity leave. I wanted to stay off work for a year and a half. I was having some issues with my mum. And historically, my mum has suffered from postnatal depression with each of us, with me probably the worst. So I'm aware of postnatal depression, but I'm also aware of the stigma that my mum got. There was like a real abuse, labeling, outcasting of her when we were growing up. So when I felt the symptoms of not wanting to go out, didn't even want to get showered and dressed, just eat whatever I could find, didn't want to go baby groups. And coincidentally, the way it triggered in November, when it's getting darker, it's harder to motivate yourself to get out. Like November through to January, those were dark times. And it'll be interesting to speak to hubby like tomorrow. So just so everyone knows, hubby will speak about this tomorrow. I gave him the pamphlet and I said, babe, like I swear, I'm feeling this kind of way. Like, do you think I got postnatal depression? And he was like really dismissive, like, no, that ain't it. So then I just kind of sat with it. So now I'm having this conversation.
Interesting. How did that feel to hear that? So the person that you love and trust the most, sorry, I'm going to ask him about this experience tomorrow now.
Yeah.
But how did that feel to have that said back to you?
I'm literally like, you're the only person I can ask. I got goosebumps. I was resentful. I cannot explain to people how angry and resentful I was for 2 years. You didn't even recognize it. You wasn't there for me. Right? I had to do a lot more healing for the journey to be where I am now. So this is when my baby was 9 months. He's now 5 years old. I felt like, well, then where do I go? What do I do? And I didn't pursue anything. Having a conversation with my manager, I said, like, I don't want to come back after 12 months. It would make sense if I come back when my eldest goes to school. Can I extend my maternity to 1.5 years? So calendar wise, but he probably saw right through me. I worked in housing and adult social services, luckily. And being in adult social services director, he was very clear to me. He said, Bev, you might want to consider like applying to IAP, given the struggles that you're having with your kind of maternal mother, the extension of your maternity because of the childcare arrangements. He probably saw that I needed help, but I cannot compliment this man enough. Seriously, I get so tearful.
I think one of my questions for you was
not family, not friends.
How did you know when to access support? And it wasn't even that you knew to, because in some ways it was normalized. What you were thinking and how you were feeling was kind of like, well, you know, that's just the way that life is. But
and hubby will talk to you. He will talk to you about his take on it, which we shared today. And I was like, you what? Luckily there was no arms.
We can say all of these things, right?
Yeah.
We know it from that perspective. But so it was actually your manager who was aware of the depression and thought, you know, why didn't you apply to IAP? What did you do when you had this?
So then I was like, I had to ask him, like, IAP, what? Talking, it was a lot. To me, I was like, this is a lot coming at me. And so I just had to kind of hold on to that. I think I wrote the note down, and I had just gone into the office for the first time in like 9-10 months. So there was a lot to absorb and take in anyway. And then I went home And even though hubby had said, no, I don't think it is, the fact that my manager, who I respected so much, had advised this, I thought, what's to lose? I've had therapy in the past, right? I've had counseling in the past through my employment, privately. I'd had coaching as well. So just everybody knows, you know, I, like many other brown women, I knew I had issues in the past. I didn't actually associate them as trauma. So I accessed help, but we could touch on this about the therapists were white and like male as well. So I was like, yeah, just kind of drowning.
Okay, so there
For
was
me,
a
I just went,
then, right? In
yeah.
your previous therapeutic experiences, there was a mismatch. So there was something about you not joining, not kind of connecting the dots and thinking, I need to make this referral. But so how did you actually make this referral? What was the process for you?
I go onto Google, I type in IAPT, it comes up, improving adults' access to talking therapies, right? I get it wrong. And I work in adult social services at that time, so I kind of should know. And it's really easy to make the referral. I just filled in a few details and thought nothing of it. Here's a disclaimer. When you're in the darkness, taking an action which then removes you again from the situation also feels reassuring. Because now you know you're going to go in a waiting list. And it's kind of like, okay, I've done something, I'm just going to stay here because it's safe now. The darkness feels safe. I don't want to go home, don't want to go out. I just want to stew in this. I was stewing in this depressive feelings, not wanting to shower, not wanting to make dinner for myself, not wanting to cook. You do everything for the child, but then also there was a backstory where I'm like, this baby is everything to me, but at the same time, you have come into my world and I don't even know how to cope. And I don't know where to hand you over. Like, I don't know where I'm going to get the 5 minutes to do what I've got to do to get better.
Yeah, so there's almost an element of like an autopilot that you're kind of telling me that you were in the darkness and you did what you needed to do. Your baby was fed and watered, but how did that feel, that connection with the baby? How did you feel about him?
It's so bizarre. Like, he's my lifeline. I still feel that I had postnatal in the first pregnancy, but with him being able to identify it, that mental breakdown is the breakthrough. He was also really tactile, really affectionate. So as much as it was like a gift and a curse, like, I don't need you stalking me all the time. But then he would look at me, and my eldest didn't have that same level of tactile behaviors. Like 8, 9 months, my baby put his arm around me, pulled me in to give a cuddle. And I remember being like, is this real? So, and he's so mega cute. He's a jungly through and through like me. So there was that constant paradox series there, that gift and a curse. And this is why I feel really, for women in their pregnancy to be able to express, this is dark, I don't like this, because they have this thing where I'm really grateful because I'm pregnant and it's a blessing. But at the same time, you can experience real depressive feelings. And I had that through the pregnancy too.
Yeah. And on one side, you've got your entire social network saying, oh, how's the pregnancy? How is it feeling? And you're like, dark. And people don't know how to respond. And this is where all the the toxic positivity comes in, right? Everyone's like, look on the bright side. You're healthy. Your baby's healthy. And you're kind of like, you're great, but am I healthy? Am I doing that?
My nipples are cracked and bleeding. It's 3 a.m. No one else is up. What the absolute? And then you've got your 4-year-old or 3-year-old that's coming into your bed. And then in my bedroom, at one point we had a crib. My son, my 4-year-old, I had to move him into the bedroom, me and my husband.
Wow.
Like, what the absolute? And we got this bedroom with the kids.
Coming back to therapy, how long was it before you were seen?
So I think I did it between November, December. I got a call quite quickly. I know that women can end up waiting. I didn't mind the gap. Like I said, it gave me a reason to be in denial about the postnatal depression and stew a little bit longer. And then in that initial conversation, it's an assessment. And I was like, well, when are we going to get to it? I have no idea what this assessment is about. I'm just answering these questions. Now, in hindsight, I can see that they're doing something quite qualitative, is it? I don't know, Aman. You know, that the way that they can measure where we're going. Yeah. I've forgotten what it's called, but we do it in coaching too. And when then, Aman, through the post, I had a letter to say it was severe depression and moderate anxiety, or it was moderate depression and severe anxiety. I remember just seeing these words on a piece of paper. I was relieved, but also I was like, that's a stamp right there on me. And I showed my husband almost as if, look, I told you, I knew. But then I think when you hear his response to seeing that too, it's quite like, we both were at like these,
apologies for the F-bomb there for anybody watching with children. If you are
we're adults, yeah, we've got it, hopefully adults. I was like relieved. Finally, something is understood. There's a diagnosis. There's some root. But equally, I was like, I didn't want that because I see my mum having gone through this. So despite having experience of therapies in the past, I saw this label for myself as a real disappointment in myself. So there's, again, you got the light and the dark, relief and fear. So then in January, I had my first, I think I had my assessment call in January. No, I had my first booking to see my therapist in January. So yeah, November to January.
So let me just kind of like let you know about the process. So what I know about government guidelines is if someone's in the perinatal period, they can make an make a self-referral or a referral via a health professional like your GP or your midwife or whoever you're working with, and you can be seen, or you should be seen, within 2 weeks for an assessment where you might have a telephone call and they ask you things like, what's going on for you right now? Are you experiencing these symptoms? And they do a couple of questionnaires with you. These questionnaires will quantitatively tell you the numbers, the severity. And that's how you know whether it's moderate depression and severe depression. And it sounds like things were really difficult for you at that time. So.
And this is bearing in mind, like I'm quite aware because I'd already clocked that something was not right. And obviously I've got a history of depression and anxiety. But even when they ask you things like, have you got suicidal ideations? And I don't think it's presented in that way, but it's something around that. I'm quite sneaky because I was like, I ain't gonna admit that to you, because in my head I'm like, what about me and my kids? What about me and my kids? But you can suffer like suicidal ideations, like at the worst point of it. And it might not be like, I'm just gonna go kill myself, but there's these points where you're like, what am I even meant to do? I've got one baby on my boob, another in his cot, trying to get him to read his books to get to bed. Hubby's not even home from work. You just think, Groundhog Day, when is it going to come to an end? So you're right. I think the call was within 2 weeks, and then the letter came through. But I didn't have my actual meeting until the January.
So you were seen fairly quickly compared to what can be a huge waiting list.
The London waiting list, yeah. So I was really impressed because my manager had given me that heads up. The IAP waiting list is approximately X number of weeks in Islington where I worked. So for me in Essex, it's Buckingham and Dagenham. It moved quite quickly.
So I'm really glad that you got the support and the assessment and that validation that, you know what, this is a problem. This isn't just you, and it's not in your head. This is you you're making actions to get better now. And how was actual therapy? So from what I understand, you had cognitive behavioral therapy. Is that right?
Yeah, it was called light cognitive behavioral therapy. I didn't know that until I realized afterwards. Now you do a whole suite of different things and they assess what to do with you based on, but I was just in the recovery, like focused on getting recovered. So I was able to not only see her in person, but also have phone sessions. That was really important to me pre-COVID even, because I had a huge anxiety. Now that when you're in the postnatal depressive stage, it can manifest differently. For me, it was like, who am I going to leave my baby with? How long am I going to leave my baby? And how am I going to drive to this place? Is there parking? I have a real... my anxiety and it really plays up with my driving. So for me, she was local. I then Google where I'm going, and I got to meet her in person. She was a woman of color. She was a black woman. This, like from the moment we met, we just clicked. Like, I think that initial conversation was on the phone.
Why is it that you think that you clicked?
So I could just talk to her about like my in-laws and things that I was feeling, being from a colored background. Like it was important to me. I remember my first therapist was a white male with ginger hair. Like this, like why does this stuff just stand out to me? But he just used to sit there and be like, and he was the first person outside of like one or two people I'd ever talked to about my childhood trauma, ever. And I just remember it was completely invalidating. That whole experience was so invalidating. Yeah. So
I'm
to
so
meet this
sorry because
woman,
personal, it's a deeply personal thing to talk about trauma, let alone in your
yeah.
childhood, because that's stuff that you've held for such a long time, right?
And I was
I'm so
like,
sorry that you went through that.
I was a bit like, why are you so non-responsive to this like really dark stuff? Like this person was, um, and then I don't know. I think then that put me off counselling.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had tried life coaching, which was great. But once you've got a baby and you've got postnatal, and like I said, I didn't have to go to a doctor's surgery. I could just do it online. So that disconnect, that way of applying for IAPT is quite good for me in my depressive state. So when I met it wasn't Crystal, I've forgotten her name. I actually stayed in touch with her. I probably should write to her again. When I spoke to her in person, she was just so, like you. It was easy to talk to her, and it was nice. And let's just say the setting was rank. It was I think it was a unit, a mental health unit previously. The rooms were really like, going into a hospitalized setting isn't nice for everybody, but I just want everyone to know that's watching. Thank you for staying on, being here with us. But I was determined. I knew that now by January of 2017, I want to get out of the other side. I knew I could see the light at the other side. I just needed someone to help me get there. And she always said to me, because you knew you were where you were going, you were a delight to even counsel, because she said with you, it was like you knew the focus. But this horrible setting, like button yourself in kind of, and you already feel like you've got this stigma of being, you've got a mental health issue. You are, you're diagnosed now with depression and anxiety. Like what is this person going to think? I had this huge backlog of story about thinking I'm going to be judged, and this woman was just lovely. I could talk to her so freely. And I remember being in that really ugly room just thinking, thank God you're here with me, because you're really nice. And I felt safe.
So despite the really grim setting, actually it was a space that you felt validated, you felt that it was safe, and you were listened to, and you were supported. And how many sessions did you have in total?
I think it's 6 sessions, Aman, we get. That feels like it was around about the right amount. And I think she assessed each time we met, whether it was so it could be a week, it could be a week, it could have been 2 weeks. And there was a time where I'd missed it. And now another thing, as a woman of color, we are really apologetic. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that. I felt disrespectful to her time. We've been raised like, if you don't show up to a meeting, like it's the worst thing ever. And she was always so accommodating and understanding. And even that, outside of the calls, her approach with me in our correspondence just made me see this whole self-compassion that I could apply to myself. CBT is very much like that, I feel.
There's a real element of just being kind to yourself and treating yourself like you would treat other people.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't effing blind at my neighbor, but why am I doing it to myself? I need to find a way to love myself first before I can love other people, right? And this was an act of love for you, even going to therapy and making that space for yourself. But I'm also aware of time. I know that you've got another appointment. So how long did it take for you to recover? So you didn't get diagnosed with postnatal depression until you were 8, 9 months. The baby was 8, 9 months old. Yeah. You were seen within 2 months-ish, and you started treatment, which is great. How long do you think it took you to recover?
I think we got until March. She did some really good work with me with things that would come up. And so we looked at those concepts of catastrophizing, the negative self-talk. Now I recognize all of that. And I would practice in between. Whether I missed the session accidentally, I think maybe we went up until about March. Okay. And then, so that's
when did you start noticing a change? When did
I started seeing a change alongside, similarly to the weather? I feel like around March, April time. Although you feel it with immediacy, Aman. You'll
Okay.
come away from a session with somebody who's amazing as a CBT therapist, and you feel better within yourself because you might have gone over a scenario like me driving somewhere, and I would have talked it through with her and I'm like, okay, I can do this. I had to do the work outside of the calls.
Yeah.
So I'd practice drawing sometimes or doing different things because I'd gotten myself into a watch Kardashians, drink red wine, eat cheese.
That sounds
Mind,
great for one night a week, right? But not every day.
yeah. So I would just do things that would numb my mind. So then I would say, Rav, go and do an exercise. Crystal said, it wasn't Crystal, but Crystal's not an amazing woman. Go and do the exercise set for you. Then you can go and do it. So I started putting these parameters in place to do the things that maybe felt difficult. And by April, May, June, July, that was quite apparent for me. On his first birthday, the party was in June. I remember realizing that shit, I don't fit none of my clothes, but that was me. I was out of the depressive state by then. That was just me uncomfortable then in my body. And then I went on a different journey of body neutrality, body acceptance, and all the rest of it.
What I'm hearing.
So these things manifest, don't they? Like we do this staggered approach to healing, but it's been continued since.
It is. And what I hear is it took a really long time for you to get there. But once you had the awareness and you took that step, the recovery came quite quickly because you had that light bulb moment and it said, I'm ready to not feel like this anymore. And we all have that. We all have that moment. We could be washing the dishes. We could be having a shower and you're like, no, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And you took that step and you took it forward. And actually, the recovery was quite quick after that. And that's what I'm really pleased to hear about. So let's go back to the beginning of the conversation. You were telling me, you were saying, oh, I'm not going to tell my therapist about these potential difficult and suicidal thoughts I'm having because my children are going to get taken away. People are going to think I think you said something like people are going to think I'm mad and people don't understand me. All your worst fears, did they come true?
No, none of them.
Why do you think they didn't come true?
Because with my CBT therapist, we rationalized the thinking patterns.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to apply logic and break those down. Like it's such a worthwhile experience. Nobody wants to give a 30 minutes every week, but yeah, they were horrible fears, by the way. Like it's so true. You think the most, my kids are never going to respect me. I'm going to go down my mum's route, or my husband's like going to think I'm like nut job. We can say this stuff because that's how you feel at the time. It's very, but yeah, no, those worst fears did not come true.
Good.
He's there going, I did think that.
I'm glad that you're both on one side together now. So you guys survived the difficult times, right? What would you do differently? If there's anything that you could do differently, what would it be?
I would definitely recommend coaching when we're younger, growing up. I think that now there's things like mindfulness and stuff. But I just think CBT is so valuable. It's a way of life.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's just CBT. There's so many other approaches. You can be seen by different types of psychologists who can support you with that journey. But
like ACT that you introduced us to.
I've supported ACT before with acceptance and commitment therapy. It's about when you feel stuck, and it's about seeing past that and identifying and aligning with your values, and that's really important too. So to end, your learning point, your learning points, or what advice would you give to someone who is struggling with their mood?
Talk to somebody. If you are not comfortable to talk to someone, you could do what I did, which is arm's length. Just go online to the IAPT website, improving access to adult therapies. Aman will correct me, because you can just do the self-referral form. It feels a lot less intrusive. Again, DM someone like Aman or myself where we can signpost you to somewhere that you can make contact. But you're not alone. Like, it feels scary, and like we've talked about the fears, so there's somebody or a service that will definitely understand you, that will be there for you.
And that's so important. And it's not, there's always someone there. So if you're in the perinatal period, you've got your GP, you've got your midwife, you've got your health visitor, you've got a children's center, you've got all these different people. And now there's such a massive IG community of awareness pages, family support pages. There's somewhere, someone who will always be able to help and
100%.
and or signpost you in the right direction. So, Ravneet, thank you
you.
so much. It's been so lovely.
Thank you to everyone for
And I
coming.
look forward to talking about paternal mental health and the paternal role in maternal mental health tomorrow, hopefully, at some point. We need to arrange that. So thank you so much for your time.
Definitely tune in for that one.
Stuff. Do I just press X now? Is that it?
Yeah,
or,
X and save. Thank you to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone who's
Bye,
been
Aman.
here.
Thank you
You've been
so
amazing.
much.
Take care. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.